we return to Isla Nublar. In the previous episode, we saw the remaining dinosaurs on the island get recaptured and enclosed in their respective enclosures. And with it, the opening of Jurassic World itself. Now, it was time to expand the park by building brand new areas and expanding the roster of dinosaurs with brand new ones. To begin, multiple monorail systems are constructed, allowing guests to travel across the park with ease. Once the stations were completed, Simon Masrani ordered his construction workers to shift focus to the worker facilities. A pathway is extended behind the ACU Ranger Station, and it would be connected to the Hammond Creation Lab and a holding pen. Once completed, the scientists got to work on creating a brand new species of dinosaur. Returning from his decade-long absence from the public eye, Dr. Henry Wu was returned to work alongside Masrani Global to create these new dinosaur species for Jurassic World. While the scientists worked on creating a new dinosaur species, Masrani then ordered his construction workers to begin work on a new area that would house the new dinosaurs, along with other amenities and attractions. Next to the guest area, a new enclosure is being built. This new dinosaur requires a lot of space to move around, despite its small size. What species will be housed in this enclosure? Well, as stated a moment ago, it's a small dinosaur, the Pachycephalosaurus. Pachycephalosaurus, meaning thick-headed lizard, is a small dinosaur that lived during the late Cretaceous period. The species gets its name from the dome-like bone structure on its head, which was believed to have been used as a battering ram, but that claim has been disputed in the recent years. The Pachyes are sedated and airlifted into their new enclosure. Once placed inside, the Pachyes begin exploring their new enclosure and interacting with one another. It wouldn't be long before Masrani ordered another dinosaur to be housed within the same enclosure. So the scientists got back to work and created a brand new species, the Stygimoloch. The Stygimoloch is a relative of the Pachycephalosaurus, but there is still also the debate whether or not it's even a valid species. In other words, was it ever a real dinosaur? With the technology Masrani Global and Ingen had at the time, they decided to make the Stygi a separate species and reap the consequences later, if there are to be any. Once the Stygimolochs are placed into the enclosure with the Pachycephalosaurus, the two species immediately get along and coexist. Due to the large space needed for both species, it would be hard to get a glimpse of them inside the large enclosure. However, Masrani and the marketing team hoped that the addition of a new dinosaur species would be enough to convince guests to spend their money to see them. Besides, they won't be the only new species in Jurassic World. Many days have passed, and during that time, the new guest area has expanded, featuring new amenities, attractions, and a large hotel to entice guests to visit the area. To attract more guests to the area, a new enclosure is being constructed to house 2 additional species. The scientists immediately began working on creating the new dinosaurs as a new enclosure was being built. While all of that was going on, the guest area was once again expanded with the addition of new hotels and plazas. Eventually, it was time to reveal the new dinosaur that would be added to the park roster. To begin, we have the Strachosaurus. The Strachosaurus is a small ceratopsian species, a distant relative to the Triceratops. It's a pretty unknown species, but Masrani and the scientists hoped that its addition to Jurassic World would boost its popularity. Once the Strachosaurus was placed into its enclosure, people began to take an interest in the new species. Their small size and unique personalities made them fairly popular amongst children. However, the enclosure is not yet finished. One more species is to be added to the enclosure alongside the Strachosaurus. Meet the Sauropelta. The Sauropelta is a small notosaurid dinosaur that existed during the early Cretaceous. Despite their similarities to the ankylosaur, the Sauropelta, and other notosaurids in general, are a completely separate genus from the ankylosaurids, but they are closely related. The Sauropelta are placed inside the enclosure alongside the Strachosaurus. Both species coexisted well and got along with one another. It was clear to Masrani and the marketing team that housing 2 unknown species in the same enclosure was a good idea. As the popularity of both began to rise, this then gave Masrani the idea to do the same thing with more unknown species. A brand new enclosure begins construction right next to the guest area and the Brachiosaurus enclosure. With work continuing well into the night, by the time the enclosure was finished, the scientists had finished making the new dinosaur species. The first species to be released was the Amargasaurus. The Amargasaurus was a small sauropod species, just like the Brachiosaurs. They were visually unique, and with their small stature and 2 rows of spikes along their necks, the 2 Amargasaurus specimens are sedated and airlifted out of the holding pen. Once inside their new enclosure, the Amargasaurs began to adjust to their new habitat. Not long after, the next species is released from the Hammond Creation Lab, the Sinoceratops. The Sinoceratops was a relatively recent discovery at the time, making it truly unknown to regular guests. It was another ceratopsian species, like the Strichosaurus and Triceratops. It was visually distinct with its bright colors and unique frills. Like with the Amargasaurs, the Sinoceratops are sedated and flown over to their new enclosure. Once placed inside, the Sinoceratops quickly begin winning the hearts of guests, showing off affection towards one of its kind. The popularity grew even more when two Sinoceratops were caught fighting for dominance. The Sinoceratops quickly became more popular than the Amargasaurs, which was a disappointment to Masrani and the marketing team. However, it mattered very little to them. As ticket sales began to rise again, guests slowly made their way towards the new guest area, wanting to see the new dinosaurs that had been added to Jurassic World. The park's popularity seemed only to get bigger every year. Not only that, the park itself continues to grow bigger as well, with the addition of new areas and dinosaurs. Truly, Jurassic World is a suitable replacement for Jurassic Park, and time will only further that point.